Welcome back, everybody. It's the last week of 2024, and things are still moving and shaking in the financial world, even with the holidays upon us. Today, we are diving into an AI-generated financial briefing that comes to us from PantheonAI. And for anyone not familiar, PantheonAI is your one-stop shop for all things finance, news, business, and tech. So it's like a snapshot of what's been happening in the markets as of today, December 27th. But, we are not going to stop at just the headlines. We're going to unpack what it all means with help from our expert, the one who can connect the dots and really give us those so what insights.
Always happy to be here. Let's get into it.
Our first up, the market closed positive across all major indices yesterday. We're talking S&P 500, Dow Jones, Nasdaq, Russell 2000. They were all in the green. Now, the gains might have been modest, but hey, a win's a win this close to the new year, right?
Absolutely. And it's even more impressive, I think, when you consider that trading volume is typically lower this time of year, as people step away for the holidays. So those modest gains actually suggest a pretty strong underlying positive sentiment, at least as we wrap up 2024.
I like the sound of that. Now, something that really jumped out at me was the Russell 2000's performance. It surged by almost 1.4%. What's the significance of that?
Well, the Russell 2000 is interesting because it focuses on small cap stocks. And these companies are often seen as kind of a barometer for the health of the U.S. economy specifically. So this surge could be a sign that investors are feeling good, confident about domestic economic growth heading into 2025.
Okay, so good news for the U.S. economy. What about the crypto world? Bitcoin and Ethereum both saw gains. Bitcoin up 0.86% and Ethereum up a more impressive 2.27%. Seems like the crypto market is ending the year on a high note, too.
Indeed. This continued upward trend, even with all the regulatory changes and scrutiny happening around the globe, really speaks to the increasing mainstream acceptance of cryptocurrencies. Ethereum in particular has seen some impressive gains, likely fueled by its ongoing upgrades aimed at making the network more scalable and lowering those pesky transaction fees. Something for our tech-savvy listeners to keep an eye on.
For sure. Now let's move on to some major news in the world of mergers and acquisitions. It's been a real whirlwind of activity as companies position themselves for the year ahead.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there.
For sure. So we saw UnitedHealth and Amedisys waive their right to terminate their merger agreement, a big development in the healthcare sector. And Relief Therapeutics is pushing forward with talks to potentially acquire Renexion. But it's not all smooth sailing, right? Clearwater Paper shares took a hit when a potential deal with Brazil's Suzano fell apart. And we also saw Martin Midstream Partners scrap their sale to Martin Resources. And then you've got Perfect Corp snapping up Wannabe in the beauty and fashion tech space. So what's the overall takeaway from all of this merger mania?
Well, it's interesting to see these different sectors play out in the M&A landscape. The healthcare and biotech industries, for instance, are clearly attracting a lot of investor interest right now. Consolidation and the potential for big innovations are driving that trend. But as you pointed out, not every deal is destined for success. We're seeing some volatility in areas like commodities and energy, where factors beyond just company strategy can come into play.
Right. All right, let's shift gears and talk about gold for a moment. It's had an incredible year with gains over 27%, but it seems like things are cooling off just a bit now. What's your take on that?
Well, gold is always fascinating because it's so sensitive to global economic trends and investor sentiment. Their strong performance this year could be tied to concerns about inflation and geopolitical uncertainty, but the recent cool down could suggest that some of those worries are easing. It's also worth considering the impact of the recent U.S. election results. Shifts in monetary policy from the Federal Reserve can have a big impact on gold prices, so investors are likely watching closely to see how things play out.
Okay, so there's a lot to think about with gold as we head into the new year. Speaking of things to watch, our briefing mentions lottery stocks. That sounds intriguing and maybe a little dangerous. What exactly are we talking about here?
Lottery stocks is a term used to describe those high-risk, high-reward plays in the market. They're speculative investments, often in smaller companies or emerging sectors, that carry the potential for huge gains but also huge losses. Think of it like buying a lottery ticket. You're betting on a long shot with the hope of hitting it big.
So proceed with caution. What about small cap stocks? They seem to be getting a lot of attention as we wrap up the year.
And for good reason. Historically, small-cap stocks have tended to perform well during periods of economic growth. They can offer investors the potential for strong returns, but they also come with more volatility. It's a segment of the market that often attracts investors with a bit more appetite for risk, especially when the economic outlook is positive.
Makes sense. So we've got this generally positive market close, a lot of action in mergers and acquisitions, and some interesting trends emerging with small cap stocks and cryptocurrencies. What else should we be paying attention to as we head into 2025?
Well, to really get a sense of where things are headed, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the key sectors and global trends that are shaping the market landscape.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Let's start with technology, a sector that never seems to slow down.
It's true. There's always something new and exciting happening in tech. What are the big trends that are really shaping the landscape right now?
Well, digitization is still a major force. Businesses across all industries continue to invest heavily in things like cloud computing, AI, and cybersecurity. These are areas where we're seeing a lot of innovation and growth, and that's likely to continue in 2025.
So for investors who are interested in the tech sector, those are some key areas to watch. What about energy? It's a sector that's been through a lot of ups and downs in recent years.
Absolutely. We're in the midst of a major energy transition with renewable energy sources becoming more and more important. This shift presents both challenges and opportunities for traditional oil and gas companies. Some are adapting and investing in renewables while others are doubling down on fossil fuels. It's a dynamic landscape, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It's almost like there are two energy worlds colliding. For investors, it seems like understanding how companies are navigating this transition is crucial.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about finance. What's shaking things up in that sector?
Well, fintech is a major disruptor, with new technologies and platforms changing the way we bank, invest, and manage our money. We're also seeing ongoing regulatory changes as governments around the world try to keep up with these rapid innovations. It's a complex and evolving landscape, but it's also one with a lot of potential for growth and innovation.
It sounds like the financial sector is in a constant state of flux, which can be both exciting and daunting for investors. Now, we've talked about some key sectors, but what about the broader global trends that are influencing the markets? What should we be paying attention to on that front?
There are a couple of key areas to keep an eye on. China's economic policies are always a major factor in the global markets. They're facing some headwinds right now with concerns about their property sector and slowing growth. How they navigate these challenges will have ripple effects around the world. And then there's Europe, which has been dealing with an energy crisis fueled by geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions. While the situation has eased somewhat, it remains a source of uncertainty.
So we've got China navigating economic challenges, Europe grappling with energy concerns and ongoing geopolitical tensions.
Yeah.
It sounds like a pretty mixed bag of potential risks and opportunities as we head into 2025. What's the overall outlook from the experts? Are they feeling optimistic or pessimistic?
I'd say there's a sense of cautious optimism. The global economy has shown resilience in the face of various challenges, and there are pockets of strength in different regions and sectors. But those geopolitical risks you mentioned are definitely weighing on sentiment, and inflation remains a concern in many parts of the world. So it's a bit of a wait-and-see approach as we head into the new year.
Okay, so cautious optimism, I can get behind that. But with all this uncertainty swirling around, how should our listeners be thinking about their investments? What's your key advice for navigating this complex landscape?
My top piece of advice, as always, is to diversify your portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spreading your investments across different asset classes, sectors, and geographic regions can help mitigate risk. And of course, staying informed about macroeconomic trends and policy changes is crucial. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing.
Solid advice. So to recap, we've explored some of the key sector trends shaping the market digitization and AI and tech, the energy transition and energy and fintech disruption in finance. We've also touched on some of the global challenges and opportunities that investors need to be aware of as we head into 2025. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the importance of staying informed.
Yes, absolutely.
Our briefing today was generated by PantheonAI, which positions itself as an information co-pilot. It covers finance, news, AI, business, and tech, all areas that are interconnected and constantly evolving. It seems like having a tool like that could be incredibly valuable in this fast-paced information age.
I completely agree. In today's world, staying ahead of the curve requires access to reliable and timely information. And having a tool that can help you sift through the noise and extract the key insights is incredibly valuable. Whether you're an experienced investor or just starting out.
That's a great point. It's not just about having access to information. It's about having the right tools to make sense of it all. Yeah, it feels like we're standing at the edge of a new year, full of potential, but also some unknowns. Kind of exciting, don't you think?
Absolutely. And if this year has taught us anything, it's that being informed and adaptable are key to navigating this ever-changing market landscape.
Couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the financial world, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Hmm, that's a great question. I think the biggest takeaway is that while we can analyze trends and make predictions, the future is always going to hold some surprises. That's why it's so important to stay curious, keep learning, and be prepared to adjust your strategies as needed.
I love that. Embrace the uncertainty. I know we've covered a lot of ground today, but if you had to pick just one sector or trend that you're personally most excited about heading into 2025, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. But if I had to choose, I'd say I'm particularly fascinated by the intersection of AI and healthcare. We're already seeing AI being used to develop new drugs, diagnose diseases, and personalize treatment plans. And I think the potential for AI to revolutionize healthcare is only just beginning to be realized.
That's a great call. I'm with you on that one. The possibilities seem endless. So to our listeners, if this year's any indication, 2025 is going to be an interesting ride. Keep your eyes open, stay informed, and maybe even get a little bit excited about the unknowns. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, your financial journey is unique. What are you most curious about as we head into the new year? Let us know. Maybe that's our next deep dive.